Scripted dialogue is a must. Now, when I share this with people, people immediately default to, well, Mike, I didn't sign up to be in a call center. This is not a call center. It's not about the call center. It's about knowing how to get started. Remember, if we went back to the beginning of this, we talked about consistency, then efficiency, then proficiency. So if we don't start with a dialogue first, a scripted dialogue, then how could you get to efficiency, then proficiency? You're not going to get consistent, because each time when you go in to talk to these folks, you're going to be thrown off. If you stick to the same thing over and over and over again, watch and see the results. You're going to see them pile up like you haven't ever seen before. I've tried it. I've tried to veer off the dialogue and boom, lost it. But when I consistently came in with the same thing over and over and over again, it was a replicable process. It allowed me to get better and better and better. So, however, a lot of realtors mistakenly may replace their personalities with a script, resulting in a disaster. That's the old, let's wing it. I'm gonna smile and I know you. You're nice. Listen with me. You must combine your own natural abilities of charm and persuasion with the following dialogue so the words in the system become yours. Remember, be likable, not arrogant. Also stay curious. Always stay curious. And never imply that you know what's best for the seller. You see, a lot of agents, that's what they want to do. They think that they have to tell the seller what to do. In fact, self-discovery, consult, conversate with the seller. As a consultant, you are only the option giver, not the decision maker. Give the options. You have to give them control. You have to give the sellers control. So I would urge you, as I read and present over here, to read the slides as I go along. I will read the highlights of the slides and how I handle it. So before assembling appropriate plan and strategy, you must define the goal. But stage 3 begins with uncovering the seller's needs. When uncovering needs, you must stay totally neutral. Stay neutral. This is not the time to address or debate each specific issue. Okay, first, win-win. Isn't it true every business relationship or friendship should be win-win? Right? Law of human reciprocity. So here we go. First, let me say that I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with me. You know, I'm going to pause here for a second. Every time I've read things like this, it sounded very hokey, like cliche. Well, I've heard this before. But believe me, it works because you're showing appreciation, right? They're inviting you to their home for potential of selling a property that they might have owned for 30 or 40 years and took them to pay off that mortgage. So you should thank them for even thinking of allowing you into their property. So I want you to understand, here we go, back to the dialogue. I want you to understand that from the very beginning that my goal is not to come in and give you a presentation about what it is. I think you want to hear, but I'd rather to have a conversation to see if a win-win working relationship can be created. See, a lot of real estate agents are willing to sacrifice a win-win relationship in order to simply take a listing, and want you to know right up front that I don't operate that way. With me, it's win-win or no deal. Agenda. So you guys know the consultation agenda that I use and I've used over the years. My goodness, if you're not using an agenda, you're not staying on track, and you cannot replicate the results in each one of these presentations. That's why when you see agents in their business, it goes like this: up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. It's a big joke in our industry, but actually it's not that funny. You don't need to go up, down, up, down, up, down when you have an agenda and you do the same thing over and over and over and over again, and you're getting better and better and better results, right? Consistent, efficient, proficient. Have an agenda. Explain to the seller what you'll be talking about in the agenda. So in the agenda, you're going to uncover their needs. You're going to discuss and agree on the most appropriate price. You're going to review the roles and expectations necessary for a successful working partnership. Okay. Confidentiality. I can't tell you how important confidentiality is, especially if you're working with a sphere, someone that they know. Assure them that you will not share any of the private information, especially in residential real estate. Okay, now, and by the way, it's a legal obligation, my friends. Okay, it's one of the six legal obligations that an agent has, right? Old car. Transitional phrase and questions. So you should use a phrase that once you've gone through this whole process, transition to closing the deal. So great. With that said, let's talk about your vision on a successful transaction. When uncovering needs, you must know when to ask for further definition and or clarification. Anytime other than when describing price, the seller uses words such as good, regular, competent, knowledgeable, quick, low, high, etc. You should ask for further definition by following up with a question like this. What's your definition of? Let me go back for a second. So the words I just mentioned, you should always gain clarity on what they mean by the question that they're asking. So if they said, I want a high price, what do you mean by high price? What do you mean by high price? If they say, I'm looking for a knowledgeable agent, what do you mean by knowledgeable agent? Tell me what you mean by knowledgeable agent, right? They may just simply mean, well, I want them to know the neighborhood. I want them to have a master's degree. I want them to know one families. I want them to know co-ops. Get clarity so this way you can uncover what they're looking for and see if you're a right match for them. So let's give an example. We want a quick sale, right? When someone says quick, it can mean a whole bunch of things. So what do they mean by quick? So what's your definition of quick? 2 months. See, in your head as an agent, you might be thinking, quick means like 1 week. Oh my gosh. How can I provide a 1 week sale? So boom, the seller said 2 months. And then you as a consultant say, and by sale, do you mean you want to be completely out of the house or have an accepted offer? See, when they say quick, we must define what quick means. Right? Some people say, well, no, at least I have an accepted offer on the property. That's what I'm looking for. At least I have an accepted offer on the property. That's what I'm looking for. Prioritizing dialogue. Of these 3 needs, which is most important to you? What's the second most important thing on the sheet? Leaving blank as the third. So transitional phrase. So what you've told me is that being completely out of your home in 60 days is your #1 priority. Right? So you want to prioritize what they're looking for. So if they say they want to be out of their home in 60 days, ask them again, is that your #1 priority? Is that your #1 priority? Transitional dialogue. So what you told me is that being out of your house in 60 days is your #1 priority. Let me assure you that my goal is indeed to get you out in 60 days. And really getting you out in 60 days revolves around 2 basic components, price and exposure. Since exposure does us little good if the home is incorrectly priced, we should first focus on developing a pricing strategy that will lead us to the most appropriate price entry point. Guys, this is ways in which you can start talking about pricing. Now I have other classes that, I'll have another class that we review the agenda, we break down the listing presentation. That's going to be later at a later date once we get through the Remax Momentum series. So transitional questions. Let me just ask you, do you think a pricing strategy is important? Share with me why you feel that way. When their answer is correct or close to correct, say exactly what we. When you disagree with their answer, just say, may I consult with you? So if you don't like what they say, ask for permission. So let's say they're saying, I want to list the house for $1.2 million and the property is only worth $1 million. Say, hey, listen, I'm not sure we're on the same page. Write this down, guys. I'm not sure we're on the same page. May I consult with you? May I review with you how we arrived at that price? Ask for permission. Don't say you're completely wrong, because clearly they spent time on researching and they have an idea on pricing. But many agents get in their face, boom, 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 boom. You're wrong about the price. I'm 20 years in the business. Didn't you see my reviews? Huh. My company is the #1 company. Right? Ask for permission, because they spent time researching. Many consumers today really, truly believe they can do a better job than the agent. So your focus is not to get in front of them. Your focus is to consult with them. Justification statement. See, what we must remember is that the pricing game is all about justification. Therefore, we must put ourselves in a position to defend our list price. Does that make sense? Use words like, does that make sense, to get them to acknowledge where you're at. Does that make sense? Class, does that make sense? So what we must remember is that the pricing game is all about justification. Therefore, we must put ourselves in a position to defend our list price. The moment we are unable to defend our list price, we lose leverage. You see, guys, if you were selling a $1.5 million property and the house down the block sold for 1.2, you're losing leverage because you have no data, you have nothing to back why you arrived at your price. By simply saying, oh, there's buyers waiting down the line, I've seen people email me, there's people coming. Guys, that, first off, as the market continues to transition, for sure this method is out the door. It's out the door. So, and when we lose leverage, we start to leave money on the table. All right, so here we go. Now, to me, leaving your money on the table is simply unacceptable. Wouldn't you agree? Here we go, transition. Great, let me show you the research I've already done. See, that segues, that moves to the pricing conversation that allows you to then discuss all the research that you have done. Does that make sense? So transitional dialogue, let's continue. So what you've told me is that being completely out of your home in 60 days is your #1 priority. Let me assure you that my main goal is to definitely have you put out in 7 days. And really getting you out in 60 days revolves around 2 basic components: price and exposure. Since exposure, here we go, since exposure does us little good if the home is incorrectly priced, we should focus on developing a pricing strategy that will lead us to the most appropriate price. Guys, here's some pricing dialogue. Give some pricing dialogue. So know that, the pricing dialogue, you don't want to overwhelm people with the 40-page CMA like many agents do. Many agents are overwhelming their client with a 40-page CMA that shows multiple pictures of homes sold, and instead of presenting three basic CMA summary pages that summarize comparable homes that have sold, compare homes that are active, compare homes that have expired. So let me be clear again. Let me be clear. Don't overwhelm the client. You are not a licensed appraiser. So if you sit there and hand them a 40-page CMA, you're really not showing your worth, because why? What is really your worth? Think about that. Hopefully you've been attending all the other classes we've been presenting and you know your worth. And a 40-page CMA, okay, you're basically overdoing it and you're overwhelming them. They should have 3 basic components. Comparable homes, right? It's active, comparable homes that have expired, and comparable homes that sold. So it's sold, active, and expired. Expired, of course, is those houses that came off the market. All right, so here's some example dialogue. You see, Mr. or Mrs. Ms. Seller, there are 3 basic sheets in real estate: the sold sheet, the dream sheet, and the expired sheet. Guys, make the dialogue your own if you don't like it. If you like it, use it. If you like it, use it. Sorry, give me 1 second. Yep. Yeah, we're going to get to questions in just a little bit. Thank you. See, the sold sheet represents what we can expect to get in this area at the time. 100% of the people on the sheet have already achieved what you're trying to achieve. They sold their home. That's the sold sheet. See, a lot of sellers are in denial. So they know that there are other homes that have sold like theirs for less money, perhaps. So they're getting denial sometimes, and they don't bring it to the surface. They always talk about what other properties possibly sold for. Here's the dream sheet, guys. The dream sheet is our competition, and it tells us what people are hoping to get in this area at the time. Well, most people don't realize that only 50% of the dreamers actually make it to sold sheets the first time around. The other 50% go to the dreaded expired list. This is a sheet of rejected properties, and it tells us what people are not willing to pay in this market. Do we want to position ourselves in a way we're expecting to sell the home or hoping to sell the home? Well, of course, expecting, right? And based on your needs we covered tonight, which sheet do you believe we should primarily study to determine our price? The sold sheet. All right, so when, and by the way, you ask this question and hopefully they answer it, then they just took ownership. They want to be on the sold sheet. So if they want to be on the sold sheet, exactly. Let's look at the most important research. What has actually sold in your area? Not what might have sold, okay, not what's $500,000 overpriced. Let's look at what is sold. Let's look at what's in contract. Let's look what it hasn't sold. You know what I mean?